So the opening scenes of Independence Day, where you're looking at the moon and then you see that shadow just casting over, covering the whole of the surface of the moon, and then it pans up and you see the Earth in the distance, and you can't see it yet, but you just know what's coming. It's just such there's certain iconic moments in this movie where it's ingrained into my head where I'll just never forget it, but there's so many in it that I forget so many of them, and this was immediately I got a smile on my face even just watching this moment just before, because it sets up, it's such a crazy big scale this movie's on, not just like the runtime and the size, but everything, like the I love, this is probably my favourite alien invasion movie ever. And I love just the idea of, usually when you see a flying saucer in movies, it's like 50 metres across. That's kind of like the general size. Seeing these city-size spaceships that have come out of a moon-sized spaceship, you get this feel of a world's worth of population of an alien race going around like a nomadic, marauding tribe through space. It's just it's just great. Like, it's just, I've never seen anything like that before. And even since, like War of the Worlds with Steven Spielberg's, like 10 or so years later, that felt like a worldwide invasion. But there's something about Independence Day where it's like a cosmic scale, the size of it. Like you feel, there's something about the fact that everything's on such a giant mammoth Goliath size that it really just, it is intimidating. Like it makes you imagine how scary it would be just to have a far advanced alien race show up and be so on another level.
It's funny that you say that, because I read the agent of I think it was Will Smith's wife in it.
Oh, the stripper.
Yeah, the stripper. Basically, the agents didn't pitch what the film was about at all. He just goes, this film is so big on scale that the alien spaceships are like the size of skyscrapers, and she was like immediately straight away I want to do this project. Like, do you know what I mean?
What's funny is he completely undersold it.
Yeah.
Everything about this movie is massive.
Yeah.
So another one of the things I love early on, because it sets up all well early on, where you don't see the spaceships or the aliens for a long time, but you get these glimpses of it, and a lot of the times, like I said, the giant shadow and this and that, you get to see the effects of them arriving before even you get to see the actual aliens and the alien craft themselves. And early on, it's a real trope in movies like this, like disaster movies or alien invasion movies or whatever, where they have the news reports playing in the background trying to set the scene. And a lot of the time, it's one of those things where you don't necessarily notice it when it's done well, but you really notice it when it's done badly. And it can really take you out of a movie when you can tell you're not a real news reporter. That doesn't, even the way, like the camera quality doesn't feel like a news report camera. And you can tell you wrote a script for the 10 seconds of news reporting that's going to go on the screen.
When they took him up in the spaceship, the aliens abused him sexually.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you.
And you don't get that in this movie. And part of the reason is the amount of work that went into it. But you see, I don't know, maybe like if you added it all together, it's probably like a YouTube video of it somewhere where they add up all the news reporting that you see in the movie on screen. It's probably like 2-3 minutes max.
I'd say that, yeah.
Probably 3 minutes is way over. Probably 2 minutes
I'd
under.
say, yeah.
But in actuality, they filmed over 40 minutes of different news reports from all over the world, in foreign languages, in German, in Russian. Many that never got used at all. And the ones that did get used, you see these brief, it might be in a 10-minute fleshed out proper news report, and they take out 10 seconds of it to put in the movie.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminds me of how, you know, you hear about characters that get these elaborate backstories, and 99% of the details they get about this character and their childhood and stuff never is going to end up on screen, really, but it ends up on screen in another way through the actor's portrayal, what information gives them. And I feel like it's the same thing where, because they filmed so many news reports and just took out those pieces, it felt authentic. And it comes together to really create that setting early on of this is a global thing. And it's not just global in terms of everywhere it's going about, but the cast is so big. Yeah. And it introduces what would you say, like 15 characters in the opening 10 minutes.
Yeah, you got the president.
Yeah.
And it kind of nicely sets up a backstory for him in about 2 minutes, where they're like saying he's a courageous war vet, but is he good enough to be president? And I was like, that's really clever the way they've given him a backstory so quickly. Like, so that was cool. And then you've got probably my favourite character. Who do you think I'm going to say?
Jeff Goldblum.
No, it's not actually him.
Okay, Will Smith.
No.
Who?
It's the guy that basically had been previously abducted.
Oh,
and he's like drinking like heavily because they like sexually abused him and stuff.
Well, they didn't. That's just
I know, but that's
what the
funny.
guys keep saying.
Yeah, and everyone like takes the piss out of him. Like, it's just kind of funny because they take the piss out of him and saying that it never happened when the aliens are like actually invading. So
that's what I was like as well. It's like surely that's when you turn around and be like, oh shit, like like tell us everything you know. But as well, I love that when the flying saucers finally arrive, like the city-sized ones, and again, like that cosmic scale that they give when the flying saucers are coming through the atmosphere, and they create like this huge clouds of burning fire and smoke from just breaking into the atmosphere. I wasn't sure, was that supposed to be the effects of them coming into the atmosphere, or was it like a cloaking device? I wasn't entirely
sure either, but I'm. When was this released? 1994?
1996.
Well, I couldn't have seen it in the cinema because I would have only been 5. But I remember watching this on the TV. First time I saw it. And when I saw the fucking spaceship come out, literally my mouth went open and I was like, fucking hell, man. Like, imagine if that happened in real life. Like, you just look up it and be like, we're fucked. Like, literally, like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, the images, there's something about the images of these city-sized spaceships that hovering over the cities that really just freaked me out as a kid, and it's always stayed with me. And it's, you know, it doesn't scare me anymore, but it kind of, watching it still taps into that feeling I had as a kid where it's just so awe-inspiring.
Yeah.
And also, you know, the effects are incredible.
Yeah.
And that, it really sells it, because if the effects let it down, then it just wouldn't have the same impact. But so the spaceships are arriving and they're hovering over the cities, and you have Jeff Goldblum's character, who is a maths expert, but you know he's going out with he's the ex-husband of the chick who is the go-to
president's aide.
Yeah, the president's aide. So there's that link for later on of why they're going to end up in the same room together, and he figures out that they're using their own satellites to use a code, and he works it out where the code is basically a countdown. And the countdown's up in only a few hours.
Yeah. But if my calculations are right, it's going to be gone in like 7 hours anyway. It's reducing itself every time it recycles, so eventually it's going to disappear.
Like, to make this a big part of what makes this movie work is charisma. Like, he doesn't need actors. He doesn't need people putting in performances. He doesn't need people to like put on an accent or be like they're from the 50s. Yeah. He needs charismatic people. Will Smith. Jeff Goldblum. Jeff Goldblum, he's a great actor as well, but you know what? He's a charisma machine. And that's what made this movie work in a lot of ways. And you look later, like, I love Jake Gyllenhaal. But he's a fantastic actor. But he's not he's not like a charisma machine.
Yeah, I get you.
And he was kind of boring in Day After Tomorrow, because if you're a good director, you can get an amazing performance out of him. But Roland Emmerich isn't going to get that out of him.
Yeah.
In years. But that brings me back to Jeff Goldblum figuring out the code. So he goes off to the president and warns him that this code's going to go off and we need to get out of here in like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And that brings us on to the alien destruction scene. The first attack.
Yeah. Before we get onto that, I want to talk about my second favourite character in the film. Obviously, when Jeff Goldblum and all his other nerds are in their little in their little workplace, like he basically warns them, doesn't he? Like they're gonna do something, and then all of a sudden they're like, "We've got a bunker. Like let's go to that." And it's this like, I think he's clearly meant to be like very bombastically camping it, but I can't.
And smoked a million
cigarettes.
cigarettes.
I've seen this guy before. But he's,
oh my god!
Yeah.
I gotta call my mother.
Oh my god! Oh my god! I gotta call my brother. I better call my housekeeper. I gotta call my lawyer. Forget my lawyer.
Yeah, he's one of these guys that. Do you remember we was talking some while ago on the show about that guy at the start of the Dark Knight who's also in Heat? He's just an actor that pops up and you don't know what
he's never in a movie more than 10 minutes, but always really memorable.
Yeah, and I've seen this guy loads of times.
Yeah.
I think his voice is actually like that.
It is, yeah.
And then like he just made it. He just cracked me up so much. Like he was his classic, but I think Jeff Goldblum was like, if you think about it, it just had like the perfect casting, as you said. You couldn't imagine anyone else apart from Will Smith playing that role. Jeff Goldblum, even Jeff Goldblum's like Jewish kind of like rabbi dads. They had like the perfect chemistry on the screen.
I mean, when
Judd Hirsch, I think.
Like it's the cast is great, but the cast of characters is so much fun as well.
Yeah,
and you do have to put on your 90s hat watching it because it is just, you know, if you're gay, you're the most gay man in the world. If you're Jewish, you're the most Jewish man in the world, and beating down every single Jewish stereotype and turn it up to 11. But it's just, it works in the movie. Like, it is what it is. Everyone just fits their piece perfectly. And like, if you're a nerd in this movie, you're Jeff Goldblum's version of a nerd, where you're like the coolest guy in the room. Somehow. Like, it's perfect.
I was thinking like, I don't know, this is gonna sound weird, but like he's the most unnerdiest nerd I've ever seen. Like he's just strolling around, like all the birds fancy him, like with his glasses on. Like, so yeah, it was perfect. But back to the first destruction scene.
Emmerich's talent is in, you know, the special effects and the epic scale and all that, but he is clever in just doing small, obvious but effective ways of getting you to you know, emotionally get invested. Yeah, like you see entire cities getting blown away, but before you do, he gets you to meet Will Smith's wife's friend from the strip club. Yeah, the white girl who is, you know, you only get a few minutes of screen time, but they cast a likable actress, and she's nice in the few minutes you see her. Yeah, and you like the fact that she's like makes a sign to say hello to the aliens and goes to the top of the skyscraper. And before the first alien blast goes off, she's the last thing you see. So even though it goes to this epic scale, it's put into your head, she died, and now everyone else is dead. Everyone else is going to die as well. So before it goes to that epic scale, it pulls you in with just one character representing it all.
And you kind of like, imagine if you were seeing the film for the first time and like they was all on top of the skyscraper, and then Will Smith's stripper's wife's like, please don't go, like please, I just have a bad feeling about this. And you're like, they're blatantly gonna just destroy them, like, do you know what I mean? And it's like, she's like, no, I want to welcome them, and then evaporated.
But they never showed in the trailers at the time.
No.
The destruction, or how they went about the destruction. So you could probably assume, but I don't think anyone expected the level.
No.
Or you know, the one beam comes down. I love how it's coordinated as well, where you hit New York and LA and Austin or wherever it is in Texas, and assumably cities all over the world. It would have been nice to see some other cities around the world getting hit, but it's America.
Yeah.
But it's shocking. Like, the beam comes down, blows up the Empire State Building, and then the flames just keep coming, and every building it hits, it just evaporates. And you do get this. It makes you wonder why there hasn't been more shocking depictions of a nuclear bomb going off. Because really, whenever you have a nuclear bomb going off in movies, it's from afar, so you see that big mushroom cloud, but they never really go in. And I felt like this gave me that impression of that scale of power.
Yeah.
And it is extraordinary. For me, it's one of the greatest movie sequences of all time. Like, I'm not saying Independence Day is up there with Citizen Kane or whatever, but this sequence alone, probably everything up until the spaceships revealing themselves to this sequence it's the one of the best chunks of cinema you'll ever see. Like 10-20 minutes of cinema.
For me it was like the most memorable one for me is when they've just escaped the lighthouse and then it comes down and just explodes it. Like, I was like, that's like
White House.
Yeah. I was like, that's one of the most iconic like buildings
So
in American
iconic.
history, and the way they do it, where it just fucking explodes outwards.
I mean, speaking of the White House, like you said, it's one of the most iconic shots ever of the beam coming down and the White House exploding. Which is kind of funny that the aliens knew to go to the White House.
Yeah.
But what's amazing about that scene is the special effects are so fantastic, and it's a miniature effect, one of countless miniature effects in this movie. And I love and appreciate CGI as a tool in movies when used right. I really, really don't like poor use of it or lazy use of it and overuse of it. And even the best special effects today, the best CGI today, for me just doesn't compare to good miniature work with maybe a bit of CGI elements supplemented into it just to blend in little blemishes here and there. But you just can't fuck with miniature work.
No.
And this movie's probably the absolute, maybe only rivaled by some of the Star Wars movies, first trilogy. This movie is probably the most impressive use of miniatures ever. The White House was a miniature. The Empire State Building was a miniature when it explodes. Every building, virtually, that you see explode in this movie was a miniature. And you'd probably guess that just from watching it if you're kind of like savvy about movies at all. But every single jet you see in this movie is a miniature.
Yeah.
Air Force One at points in this movie is a miniature. The helicopter that is exploded just before the big attack sequence is a miniature. Most of the Grand Canyon you see in parts of it were miniatures. All the mini alien aircraft that we'll get to in a bit that come out to attack the fighter jets are all miniatures. Even Will Smith, when he's parachuting out after he's gone out, is a miniature.
Yeah, I saw that.
And it's just unbelievable. Every giant flying saucer is a miniature. Everything, virtually everything in this movie is a miniature. And it gives, when you see the cities being wiped out, it gives such a physical quality.
Yeah.
Like, you can reach out and touch that. Even if deep down you know it's a miniature. You nearly don't know it's a miniature, they look so good. But it just adds something to it. And the only effects, for me, that date this movie are the non-miniature effects. Anytime there's, the compositing of the cars flying all over the place. that's ropey. Some of the explosions where you can tell it wasn't a real explosion is ropey. But the miniature effects are just amazing, and the level of detail and work that went into it. They spent months working on the perfect material to make the buildings out of, so that the physics of that size being blown up would replicate how concrete bursts into dust.
Wow.
At the real scale size, and finding the perfect material so that the glass would shatter when exploded in the same size chunks if you scaled it up to real glass. Like, just and it's so worth it. Like, as much as this is a big schlocky, silly, epic blockbuster, summer blockbuster, the level of work and passion that goes into the special effects is just amazing. Because a lot of the time you hear, sometimes I feel like people nearly feel like just as long as there's a budget the right size, it will just look good, and it doesn't work that way.
Yeah,
you see it why Peter Jackson can make such beautiful, like, as much as he was getting like $200-300 million budgets for some of his movies, he delivered like an $800 million budget movie for another director.
Yeah, about the miniatures, because obviously when I first saw it when I was younger, I was amazed by it, but I didn't appreciate what was actually going on, like, because it just never crossed my head, like, how they actually doing it, if you see what I mean.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
A fact about this, the guy that done all the miniatures and obviously subsequently destroyed them, that must be so annoying.
Yeah,
They built them up.
It's like being an ice sculptor.
Yeah, like
build it just
like
to
we were talking about a guy at school that used to do connects and then everyone
yeah,
used to break
smash it.
Basically, this film holds the record for the most amount of miniatures used and destroyed. They've even said that you could have 2 films with miniatures in, like, put together, and it still wouldn't match this. And they think it's a record that will last for all time now because of the advancements in CGI. No one really does it with miniatures anymore, so they think this film will have the record for all of time.
Man, boy, hold on, Cap. You lose? Yes, sir. Got your victory dance? Well, I got it right here. Yeah.
So obviously you've got Will Smith in this. Now, this is kind of like the first film I remember him being like one of the main guys.
But he's brilliant in this movie, and I love his little wingman as well.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it's funny
You're
because
going too fast.
it's funny because it again, like the character writing and the acting in this movie is so spot on, where he only gets a couple of minutes screen time, but you like him immediately. You like him as Will Smith's friend. You like they had that chemistry. He's kind of a bit like got that annoying Robin Williams stand-up sort of style of comedy, but it's still endearing for whatever reason. And even though his introduction is basically telling Will Smith that he shouldn't marry his girlfriend because she's a stripper,
slag, basically.
which in another movie would make you
hate him,
assume like, oh, I guess I'm supposed to hate this guy, but he's not. He's has a bit of depth to his character.
Yeah.
And a lot of these characters have a bit of depth to them. Everyone has a little arc, which is quite nice. Will Smith wants to be an astronaut, and apparently he'll never get into space if he marries his missus. But later on, we find out that's not the case.
He turns up like to the aeroplane locker room, and like, there's just a letter poking out from NASA, and he's like, "Read it, you pussy," or something like that. But there's some bits in this film. You go back to Roland Emmerich, where I fucking burst out laughing at some of the dialogue. Like when they're first going out to like fight them before they get in their plane. And then he goes, whoa, have you got your victory stick? And then the other guy's like gets it out of his pocket and goes, right here, big bro, when the fat lady sings. And they just jump into the plane.
And do you know what's funny? I always loved this movie as a kid, but some of the cornball moments that annoyed me as a kid, you'd think it'd be the opposite, but I actually appreciate them more now.
Yeah, so did I.
I love those. Will Smith used to kind of annoy me in this movie, and I love him now. In this movie,
the cornball moments are fucking brilliant.
Oh, it's brilliant, and I just love once the characters all start meeting each other, and Jeff Goldblum meets Will Smith, and because you sometimes forget who hasn't met each other because you keep chopping going back and forth across America and different parts of the world.
Yeah. But another bit that really cracked me up is when they're in a briefing about like their first time attacking the alien. That Robin Williams wingman guy is fucking around.
Yeah.
And Will Smith's like, oh no, you need to concentrate. Like you be fucking around. You're about to take on like fucking alien spaceships, which are like the size of whole countries, and he's messing
And
about.
also,
like,
you might be like that
because he's nervous.
if you haven't encountered the aliens yet or nothing's happened yet.
Yeah,
but
well,
like what? I mean, the 12 spaceships all attacked at the same time, attacking big cities. So let's just rough estimate, probably 150 million people are dead.
yeah.
Maybe they've hit other cities, so let's say 200, 300 million. Like, I think you'd be fucking taking this a bit more seriously.
But how many? I was trying to work this out. How many big, huge?
12.
There's 12. They actually do say that.
Yeah.
So in America,
It's 3.
I missed all of this.
Well, they do say it's 12, but you know there's 3. Maybe there's 4 actually in America. Because what is it? I get confused sometimes. New York's obvious.
Washington.
LA's not as obvious.
Yeah.
Washington's obvious.
Yeah, Washington's.
But
obvious.
I think there was Chicago, and then Texas also gets hit. So maybe it's 5.
But you said a point earlier about them going to the White House. But there's a scene later in the film, and I've just remembered it, where I think it's like the general guy, the advisor to like the president, who's quite a funny character himself. He goes, they've attacked like all NATO bases across the eastern seaboard. So obviously these aliens have like proper planned it out.
Well, we know that because of the fellow who was probed.
That's true, yeah.
He
good
warns
point as
everyone.
well,
he says,
yeah.
they've been abducting us, they've been
Yeah,
learning
yeah,
about all our
yeah.
weaknesses, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Which I suppose does make a bit of sense why they go straight to the White House.
Yeah. But what makes me laugh as well, like the president stays in the White House for like fucking ages. Like in real life, he'd be like long gone. Like he'd be like under the ground.
But I did like it because he's got that point to prove where he's like, everyone thinks I'm a pussy. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm going to stay here with the people. But then that's also him being brave. He sends all his crew off. You know, all the fucking the government basically off to the headquarters, the bunker under the desert, or wherever the fuck they go. The world shit hits the fan, and they all die. They all get hit by the aliens. So him being brave actually saved his life. But getting to the scene where all the fighter jets go to attack the aircraft, go to attack one of the giant spaceships, and this is when I remember watching it as a kid, where the movie just went to another level for me.
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh my god, there's these giant spaceships, and then all the little spaceship pilot fighter craft come out and start fucking them up.
Blow!
See, even before that happened, I remember as a kid just thinking like they're gonna get like battered. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
I mean, you know the humans must win, so you're thinking,
yeah,
okay,
I guess so.
So this is going to be an even-ish fight. They don't kill one of them.
Yeah, because
they got their shields as well. Yeah. And you're like, what the fuck? And they all get killed. Will Smith and Robin Williams go off.
Yeah.
And they're flying through the desert trying to lose one. Robin Williams gets killed. Will Smith's all sad. He somehow makes him crash. And we take out one alien. And I remember again, Will Smith's sort of cheering and whatever annoyed me when I was a kid. But now when I was watching it, I was nearly getting pissed off by just how badly we get our ass kicked in the first hour of this movie. Like, we just get wall to wall kicked in the nuts for like an hour and 10 minutes into the movie. And this alien craft, the little one alien crashing, is like the first win we got. And I was like, yes, man, it is cathartic to see Will Smith going fucking nuts and pumping his air, pumping his fist in the air.
They could have made this film on a much like grander scale if you think about it. They could have.
How?
No, hear me out.
Alright.
They could have shown like battles across the whole world. Do you know what I mean? Like they're fighting in Russia. They're fighting in England. Do you know what I mean?
You could make a sequel just set over the same 2 days into other parts of the world. I want to see what's going on in fucking London. What's going on in Paris? Like Africa? Like what's the crap?
You do get that a bit later on though, don't you?
You do, yeah. And they can only do so much.
Yeah, exactly.
But I know what you mean.
Welcome to Earth.
But Roland Emmerich apparently, the guy came to him with like 2 alien designs, and he couldn't decide between the 2, so he actually used both of them. So one of them's like the aliens, and one of them's like their armor, all incorporated together. So that was pretty cool, like the actual spacesuit. Now, this is one of the best lines in the corniest lines in the whole film, where he just goes, "Welcome to America," and just punches the alien in their face, like Die Hard. Welcome to the party.
And do you know what? I always assumed that was a Will Smith ad-libbed line.
Yeah.
No, it was Roland Emmerich wrote it. He was always like, "I want you," and apparently had to convince Will Smith a little bit that it wasn't going to be really stupid.
That he's carrying this alien all through the desert. Conveniently, the RVs come out of like a mirage, basically, from the desert.
And the RV, one of the RVs is, of course, our abductee.
Yeah.
Who they pick him up and they keep driving and they just happen to come across Area 51. That's what I love about this alien movie as well. It's got everything, and it squeezes in everything.
It's set up perfectly because abductee bumbling guy like gets out this big fold out map. He goes, "It's not on the map." Like, and you know, you're like, right, this is going to be Area 51.
And you know they're headed, because the president and Jeff Goldblum are headed for Area 51 as well. So he gets into one of my other favourite sequence in the whole movie, where we get to Area 51 and we meet the sort of creepy sort of stoner scientist.
This guy, man,
who's kind of comic relief, but he's good. I like him. So he starts off comic relief, and then he takes a really dark turn for his character, where they're like talking him through and blah blah blah, and you know the ships that crashed in Roswell were these ships because they've been scouting planets for so long, but they don't know anything about them. The technology's started coming to life again since they've been showing up. But Will Smith arrives, and they find out that they've got a living one, so they all get him in to do like a biopsy and get the suit open and try and study it. And all the scientists are in there, and Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum and the president are all watching outside, and Alien wakes up and it kills all the scientists and sort of biologically possesses the brain, I guess, of the lead scientist.
Release me. What is it you want us to do?
But what I loved as well is when they look at his body after, they can see it's been cold for minutes. It's already cold.
Yeah.
So he was actually dead straight away. But it was nearly using his cadaver like a puppet.
There's so many little
it's fucking
touches
great.
to this
film. It really
film.
is.
Like, see, I missed that.
So inventive.
I missed that as well.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many stuff that you miss. Like,
it's so great. And what's great about this moment is by using him telepathically, you can, without it being stupid, have a direct conversation with the aliens.
Mate.
This is such a chilling scene when you get an insight into what the aliens want, their motivations, how they view things. Like at one point, the president just tries to say to them,
Peace.
like, maybe we can learn things from each other. What do you want from us? And he just says, we want you to die. We want you all to die. We're here to use your shit, and we're gonna fucking kill you.
And then the alien kind of gets into the president's head, and he starts like going all weird. And this is one of my other favourite lines. I know the corny lines. Is this glass bulletproof? No.
So good. So he starts telepathically attacking the president, and as a result, he kind of, as the alien sees into his head, he kind of gets to see back into theirs, and he sees what they do, and what their kind of life is like, and they don't have a homeworld anymore. They just live on these spaceships, and they go from planet to planet, fucking up everyone living on the planet. If there's a civilization, they wipe it out, and then they suck the resources out of the planet, until they bleed it dry and move on to the next planet. And they're constantly scouting out, the next planet. That's why, they might have spent centuries scouting out Earth as a potential planet to take over.
So essentially, they are like intergalactic
Pirates.
Yeah, like
Instead of attacking other ships, they attack planets.
yeah, essentially, yeah, like
Fucking love this movie, man. It's so good.
So they find out the plans, and this is because they were debating on Air Force One, if you remember, about nuking them.
Yeah.
And then he's like, no, no, no. And then obviously President Bill Pullman.
Well.
And then he just goes straight away, nuke 'em.
Nuke 'em. Let's nuke the bastards.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, now we're
Like,
gonna fuck.
yes,
Now we're
President
gonna.
Judd.
I was thinking, now we're gonna fuck you up. Like, do you know what I mean? So they load up the nuke,
Yeah.
get it all ready. And this is one of my favourite scenes in the film. Just every single scene, basically. This is one of my favourite scenes. They're all in, like, the war cabinet room, like, sitting around. The nuke goes off. And obviously, because it's a nuke, like, it's going to take ages to see what's happened. They all thinking, because they got all their instruments, direct hit, direct... They're all, like, clapping, like, hugging each other, like NASA or something. And then it clears, and the guy in the little van just goes... negative, target's still there, and I'm like, no,
It's
we're
untouched
fucked
as
now.
well.
We're like, you know what I mean?
And the aliens don't even like send a ship out, like pop their head out, like what was that?
It's
They
like
don't give a shit.
obviously like half the world's already destroyed, and now basically they've done all this for no reason.
Yeah.
But as Jeff Goldblum was saying before, they fucked up the whole environment now because they've irradiated everything on top of it being destroyed. So.
Well, even if it was effective, using 10 or 12 nuclear weapons to take out the things could potentially fuck the world.
Yeah, exactly. So
But
everything's
yeah,
fucked.
so everything's fucked. And Jeff Goldblum's chatting to his dad, and he's like, "You're right, Dad, it's fucking this, that, and the other." And he's saying, "Oh, my son David, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You be careful, you get a cold." And in typical movie logic, he does like that classic original Star Trek series thing where he like gets an idea like, "Oh yes, a cold, a virus. That's it. We'll give it a virus." And also, you got to remember, this was the early 90s where, people didn't realize viruses were just things that made your computer go a bit slow. If you downloaded porn from the wrong place.
Or LimeWire.
Yeah, back in the day, it could have meant anything.
Just upload LimeWire to their ship and like download MP3s. It would just explode. But the funny thing about this, Jeff Goldblum gets this idea after like downing like 4 bottles of whiskey and like.
Oh, is that? I don't
Yeah, he's
realise
just
that.
downing like, and he's just like collapsing on the floor, and he's that pissed where everyone would just be like fucked in an ambulance, and he's like, "Eureka! I've got this idea."
Shit, I didn't even realise.
Yeah.
So anyway, they realise him and Will Smith team up. And he's, the little president ex-wife chick is kind of like, "Oh, don't go." She's all worried now. They're going to get back together. You know what's going on. Will Smith and his missus get married. If you ever marry a stripper, you'll never go into space. Well, he marries a stripper, and 5 minutes later, he's going into space.
It's all kicking off.
So
Everywhere.
it's all going off. And as they're going off into space to go into the alien mothership and implant the virus, the fucking president is getting in a military jet, and getting all the lads together all over the world coordinating, and they're getting ready to attack the big city-sized ships that are floating all over the planet.
Now, the speech the president delivers is fucking brilliant. Like,
do you know? This is the one bit I never give a fuck about, the speech.
No, I'm not going to go into what it says. Like most of the viewers would have seen it, but it is very stirring. And funny enough, the crowd. Read into this what you will, because the people behind the movie could have just made this up. But apparently, the crowd wasn't meant to cheer at all, and Bill Pullman done the speech so well that they cheered and they kept it in the film.
Really?
Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.
But I get what you're saying, like, the last fight sequence, I don't know, it just wasn't as impressive as the rest of the shit.
You've seen, they've revealed their cards already.
Yeah.
So you're kind of re-seeing stuff. The stuff in the mothership's much more interesting because that's new.
Yeah,
essentially. But like it's fine. But it's kind of like you know what's going to happen now, so you nearly just want to get to it.
Yeah,
but it's fine because there's still enough injected into it, like the fact that the one who destroys the whole spaceship in the end is the guy that was abducted, and you know his son gets to be proud of him, and it's just like I was saying the action isn't as memorable, but the character stuff in the last half hour is great, like it's brilliant.
I did like Declan as well. Obviously, I was going to say realism here. So like they're fighting a fucking giant ship. I did like the fact that even though the shields were down, like their little shitty missiles are just doing nothing to it. Even though it's going into it, they're like, we're not even making any damage. Like, and now we've run out of missiles. Yeah. So I quite like that it wasn't like the one missile that got through the shields finally like destroyed massive bits of it and they took it down. So I quite like that as well. Like,
just brilliant.
Yeah. And then like obviously it falls to the abductee guy. He's going to be the hero, and you're like, yes, the guy that they've taken the piss out the whole time is going to take down this ship. And then sadly he goes to shoot off the missile and it jams, and you know when he's looking at his little picture of his family what he's going to do. And then like it just cracks me up.
He's like, I'm coming home, boys.
He just like zooms into his face and his mask off, and he's like, I'm back, boys. And then he just flies into it and it explodes.
Just brilliant, man. Like,
but then you've got this quite nice thing where everyone from all around the world kind of like,
I know what you're going to say, Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, the Ewoks, when they're all looking at it, like, broken, like, all people from Africa, like, cheering.
Or when it's going around, like, everyone having fireworks around the galaxy.
Yeah. So that was quite a nice sequence as well, and then, like, they get on the radio, tell the world we know how to beat them.
And you got the guy, like,
Morse
RAF
code,
being like, about bloody time we had a plan.
Yeah. These Yanks have taken them down, we know what to do, chopper.
Yeah, so basically every scene in this movie is a favourite scene. I absolutely adore this movie. Usually when you love a movie from your childhood and you watch it as an adult with a gap of maybe 20 years, often you can be, bits can be a bit let down, or you can be kind of shocked you ever liked it at all.
Yeah.
I was really surprised that I actually love this movie even more watching it now as an adult. It is just perfect, and the level of attention of detail to the special effects, to the world building, you just don't really see much in big blockbusters nowadays.
Yeah.
You compare this to the likes of, you know, absolute stinkers like Godzilla, King of Titans, and that shite where you watch it and you think like, okay, you had a $300 million budget. Did you spend 1% on that on the script writing? Like, what is this shite? Yeah. Whereas Independence Day is just, there's no reason why a corny summer blockbuster can't be an absolute work of art with a lot of talented, passionate people behind it all. And it's evident in Independence Day that is absolutely possible. And between the use of brilliant special effects and the brilliant, amazing cast, so many charismatic performers in it, that this movie does just have a timeless feel to it. And I feel like even in decades to come, when some of the effects look really ropey and, you know, the 90s feels like what the 60s feels like to us, and it's really out of touch with what people will be like and, you know, the zeitgeist and all that, it will still be considered a beloved classic. This is just pure, perfect, smile on your face, have to see it in the cinema, event movie cinema.
Yeah.
Perfect. So, easy recommendation for Independence Day.
Didn't I promise you fireworks?
Yeah.
This is the Filmy McFilm Film Show.